The morning chill hadn't yet lifted from the New York sidewalks. Wind slithered between glass towers and steel skeletons, slicing through coats and coffee cups. Alicia Reed tucked her scarf tighter around her neck and checked the time on her phone. 8:03 a.m. She was already late, again. But she couldn't skip the coffee. Not today. The cart near the 34th Street subway entrance had been there since before she moved to the city. A battered red umbrella sagged over a man in a blue apron, pouring hope into cardboard cups. She was part of the regular stream, corporate walkers in coats too thin, trying to balance dreams and deadlines. "Morning, Alicia," the vendor said. "Medium roast, almond milk, no sugar," she said with a tired smile. "And one of those egg sandwiches, please." He nodded and got to work. That's when she saw him. An older man, maybe late 60s, hard to say. His coat was frayed, hands shaking, though he tried to hide it in his pockets. He wasn't panhandling. He wasn't saying a word, just standing there, eyes glued to the menu taped beside the cash box, like he was studying it for a test he didn't want to fail. Alicia hesitated. She didn't have money to waste. Her paycheck vanished every 2 weeks. Rent, utilities, her sister's tuition, her mom's medications down in Baltimore. She still hadn't replaced the broken zipper on her boots. But something in the man's posture, the quiet hunger, the way he refused to beg, stopped her. "Hey," she said softly, stepping closer. "You want something?" He didn't look up. She reached into her bag, pulled out a few crumpled bills. "Can I get another coffee and a sandwich?" she asked the vendor. "Just something warm." The older man finally looked at her. His eyes were gray, rimmed with red, but alert. A nod, small, almost reluctant. "No worries," she said, offering the bag. "Just don't freeze out here, okay?" He took it with hands that barely stopped shaking. Didn't say a word, just nodded again and shuffled away into the morning mist. Alicia turned back to the vendor. "You've got a good heart," he said. She smiled thinly. "Not sure that pays rent." By 8:46, she was at her desk on the 32nd floor of Helmore Tower. The building was a monolith of chrome and white marble, a place where ambition was air and kindness was currency nobody accepted. Alicia's title read Executive Administrative Associate, but her job was everything from coffee runner to emotional punching bag, especially when it came to Mr. Teller, her supervisor. At 9:05 sharp, he was already yelling, "I said print the quarterly in triplicate, not double-sided." Don't explain, just fix it." Her co-workers barely looked up. They were used to it. Alicia took the pages in silence and returned to her desk. She wanted to scream. Instead, she opened the spreadsheet again. She couldn't afford to quit. Not when her sister was about to start her second semester at Parsons. Not when their mother's prescriptions were late again. Not when she was already 3 payments behind on her own student loans. At lunch, her cubicle neighbor leaned over. "Did you hear?" she whispered. "Charles Winslow's in the building." Alicia blinked. "The Charles Winslow?" "Yup, the big guy himself. Elevator security's on lockdown. Legal's freaking out. Apparently, he hasn't set foot here in over 2 years. Charles Winslow, billionaire investor, CEO of Winslow Equity, the man who could turn startups into empires with one handshake. Alicia had only ever seen his face on magazine covers. Why's he here? No one knows. Maybe restructuring. maybe acquisitions, or maybe someone's head's about to roll. The entire floor buzzed. Phones stopped ringing. Slack messages turned to gossip threads. Alicia, meanwhile, stayed glued to her post at the front desk, staring at the mirrored elevator doors. She wasn't allowed to move, not when executives were expected. At 3:17 p.m., the building held its breath. The elevator chimed. He stepped out. No mistaking him. Tall, expensive charcoal coat, black scarf, gray at the temples. He didn't look around, just walked like he owned the world. And maybe he did. But then he stopped, right in front of her, his eyes locked on hers. Alicia froze. Was there something wrong with her badge, her clothes, her— "That's her," he said, turning to his security team. The entire lobby went still. The guards looked confused. One of them tilted his head. "Sir?" "That's the woman from this morning," Winslow said, now fully facing her. "She bought me coffee." Alicia blinked. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was outside the 34th Street station in an old coat. I was doing some field work. Incognito." "Incognito? I didn't recognize you," she said quickly. "I swear—" "I know," he said. "That's the point." She looked around. People were watching now, whispering. Mr. Teller stood a few feet away, jaw slightly unhinged. Winslow stepped forward. "No one else said a word to me. No one offered anything, not even eye contact. But you? You didn't know who I was, and you helped anyway." He paused. "That matters to me." Then, turning to the guards, "Bring her upstairs." Before she could protest, the elevator doors opened again. Someone handed her a guest badge. And just like that, Alicia Reed was being escorted to the top floor of Winslow Equity. The door closed behind them. She watched the numbers light up one by one. Her heart pounded. "Is this a joke?" she whispered. The taller guard chuckled. "Not unless the richest man in the building is setting up punchlines today." The elevator dinged. Top floor, glass walls, open sky. And Charles Winslow waited for her by a window, his coat now off, a rare warmth in his expression. "Come in, Alicia," he said. "We have a lot to talk about." The office was silent, the kind of silence money buys. Thick carpets, hidden doors, art on the walls that looked like it cost more than Alicia's student debt. She stood just inside the door, fingers tightening around her badge. The guards had left. It was just her and Charles Winslow now, and she still couldn't fully connect this clean-cut billionaire in a wool vest with the trembling man she'd handed a sandwich to 8 hours ago. Winslow gestured to a leather chair. "Sit, please." She did, careful not to wrinkle her skirt. Her pulse hadn't slowed. Her hands stayed clasped tight in her lap. She was trying not to sweat. "I'm sure this is overwhelming," he said, pouring 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter. "But you didn't hesitate this morning. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't ask if I deserved help. You just acted." "I didn't think," she said quietly. "That's the point." He slid her a glass, sat across from her. "I do this once a year," he explained. "Drop into the city, dressed like I don't belong. No entourage, no power. I walk through neighborhoods, subway stations, corporate campuses. And I watch. Watch for what? For what people become when no one's watching them back." She didn't answer. Not yet. "You're wondering if this is some kind of test," he continued. "It is. She frowned. Of me? Of all of us? He stood and walked to the window. The skyline stretched out behind him like a sea of ambition. I built this company from the ground up, he said, turned equity into empire. And somewhere along the way, I realized success doesn't reveal character. It hides it. Wealth doesn't always mean value, and titles don't always mean truth. He turned. But this morning? In 5 minutes, you showed me more humanity than some people show in decades. Alicia looked down. I didn't mean anything by it, she said. You. You just looked cold. And you were the only person in 100 who stopped. He let the silence settle. Tell me about yourself. She hesitated. What do you want to know? Whatever you're willing to share. She took a breath. I'm 29, she began. From Baltimore. Moved here after college. Got a business admin degree, but couldn't land the jobs I applied for. I took the assistant role just to survive, and then I guess I stayed. My mom's retired now, health issues. My sister's in her 2nd year at Parsons. She's the artist. I help with tuition. He nodded. And you? I wanted to be a designer once, she admitted. Interior architecture. I used to sketch layouts in old notebooks, fix floor plans in my head when I walked into rooms. What stopped you? Rent, she said. Reality. He watched her a moment longer. And your boss? Teller? Her jaw tensed. He doesn't know I exist, except when something's wrong. Winslow's expression darkened, just for a second. Do you like what you do? She laughed softly. It's a paycheck. What would you do if money weren't the problem? I'd go back to school, she said, surprising even herself with the speed of the answer. Finish what I started. Design. Build spaces that make people feel seen. Safe, he smiled. That's what your sister studies too? She's all color and chaos, Alicia said, smiling a little. Brilliant, though. She sees the world in texture. Winslow returned to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a folder. Thick, crisp, heavy stock paper. This is a letter of recommendation, he said. Signed by me. For Parsons' professional program in sustainable design. Alicia blinked. I didn't apply. You will. I'll cover the application fee. Also, this, he pulled out another sheet, is a grant letter, 5 figures, non-repayable. Her lips parted, but no words came. And, he continued, this is a 6-month internship in our in-house creative innovation lab. We do real work. Corporate space redesign, nonprofit projects, green infrastructure concepts. She looked at the papers as if they might vanish. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? He leaned forward, voice quiet. Because you saw a man this morning, not a brand, not a story, not a threat, not a resume, just a human being. And you helped. She blinked hard, fighting the sudden heat behind her eyes. You don't owe me anything, she said. You're right. I don't. But you're doing it anyway. I am. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, what happens to my job? She asked finally. You mean the one where you get yelled at and ignored? She nodded. You won't be returning, he said simply. Effective immediately, you'll be reporting directly to Winslow Innovation, with a title that matches your talent. Alicia sat back in the chair, dazed. And Teller? Winslow smiled. but it didn't reach his eyes. He'll find out shortly. Back on the 32nd floor, chaos erupted when an internal memo hit inboxes across the building. Subject: Staff Realignment. Notice: to all concerned, Alicia Reed will be transitioning to a leadership track placement within Winslow Innovation, reporting directly to the Creative Executive Board. Effective immediately. Teller's face turned the color of printer paper. She what? He stormed into HR. By the time he returned, Alicia's desk was already being packed up, not by her, but by an assistant from upstairs, with a monogrammed messenger bag and a confidential packet bearing her new credentials. Colleagues stared. Some murmured apologies. Others stared at their own shoes, ashamed. Alicia didn't gloat. She just smiled once, gently, and walked out. Past Teller. Past the desk she used to sit at. Past the floor where she'd been invisible. Now, she wasn't invisible anymore. That evening she found herself back at the same coffee cart near 34th. Different hour, different sky. This time she had her laptop open, designing a proposal for a community center in the Bronx, an idea she'd sketched years ago, but buried under fear and fatigue. The vendor handed her a coffee. Big day? She nodded. You could say that. That's when she saw him, the same older man from that morning. Same coat, slower walk. She didn't hesitate. Hey, sir, she said, catching his eye. He looked up, surprised. Would you like a coffee? This time he smiled. Thank you, he said softly. She handed over the cup. No fanfare, no recognition, just kindness. Because now she knew. Goodness wasn't a strategy, it was a choice. One that didn't ask for reward. One that didn't need anyone to be watching. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Welcome to the Winslow Leadership Initiative. She smiled. Tomorrow, she'd be in a new office, wearing a blazer instead of a badge, holding a pen instead of a tray. But who she was, that would never change. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the 47th floor. Alicia stepped out, her heels clicking on the smooth black tile. Her new badge hung from a clean white lanyard, stamped with a silver W. It felt foreign against her chest, like wearing someone else's confidence. But every step she took was hers. The office was quiet, sleek, a different world from the buzz and barks of the 32nd floor. The air even smelled different. Eucalyptus and quiet power. She passed by glass rooms with real plants, breakout tables with design mock-ups, and murals by artists she'd studied in college but never thought she'd see in person. The staff here didn't glance at her with curiosity or suspicion. They nodded, they smiled, as if she belonged. Because now she did. The Winslow Innovation Lab wasn't a corner office. It was a collaborative floor, bright with daylight, filled with screens and sketches, ideas and energy. Alicia was introduced to her mentor, an Afro-Latin architect named Selena Cortez, who spoke with the rhythm of a poet and the vision of a futurist. By noon, Alicia had been handed 2 community development briefs, a workstation with dual monitors, and a file labeled Bronx Cultural Hub Pitch. C notes. Read A. She blinked. You already assigned me a project? She asked. Selena smiled. Mr. Winslow said you sketched the idea years ago. He scanned it from your notebook. Alicia flushed. Wait. He went through my notebook? Relax, Selina laughed. Only the last 10 pages. He said it was the kind of concept that doesn't come from ambition. It comes from knowing what it means to grow up unseen. Alicia sat at her desk in stunned silence, then slowly opened her laptop. The digital workspace had already been customized. Her name, her login, and a pinned message from Charles Winslow himself. Design like the girl who gave a stranger coffee. CW? She exhaled shakily. The tears were there, hot behind her eyes, but she blinked them back. There was work to do. That evening, Alicia stayed late. The office emptied around her, but she kept sketching. The Bronx hub needed more than blueprints. It needed heart, a place for families to gather, children to play, elders to teach, a building that could hold memory and music, that saw people not as numbers, but as roots. She remembered the benches outside her mom's old row house, the broken street lamps, the days her sister sketched murals on cardboard because they couldn't afford canvas. Alicia poured all of that into the draft. Just after 9 p.m., she stood and stretched. The skyline was a ribbon of gold through the windows. As she packed up her things, she caught her reflection in the mirrored wall. Slacks, silk blouse, lanyard, fresh braids pulled neatly back, professional, polished, and beneath it all, still her. Same eyes, same strength, same woman who had once been yelled at by men who didn't know her name, and still chose kindness anyway. She touched the edge of the mirror. "Don't forget her," she whispered to herself. "She's the reason you're here." 2 days later, Charles Winslow asked to see her again. His office was less intimidating this time. He waved her in like they'd known each other for years. "How's your desk?" "Feels like a spaceship," she said with a grin. He chuckled. "That's the point. Build from the future, not just the past." He studied her a moment, then said, "Tell me something, Alicia. Do you still think what you did that morning was meaningless?" She hesitated. "No," she said, "but I didn't do it expecting this. That's why you deserved it." He handed her a folder. Inside, a formal letter confirming her full-time position with the Winslow Foundation as a junior project director, a permanent promotion following her internship, salary, benefits, tuition reimbursement if she pursued her degree, travel stipend, creative control on select projects. "Charles," she whispered, "this is a life." He smiled softly. "No, you are the life. I'm just giving you space to build it." She looked up at him. "What about all the other Alicias out there?" "We're working on that," he said. "But you? You're going to help lead that change." She left his office lightheaded. Not from shock, from clarity. This wasn't a fairy tale, it was a reckoning. The next week, Alicia walked into her old neighborhood in Brooklyn, not with fear, but with focus. She met with 2 local organizers about converting a vacant lot into a youth tech space. She spoke to high school girls about architecture and activism. She ran a workshop on designing for dignity. And one afternoon, she found herself back at the same corner, near the 34th Street subway. Same cart, same vendor. "Back again, huh?" he said, handing her her usual. "Habit's hard to break," she said. She turned, and there he was, the older man from before, wearing the same coat, still quiet, still invisible to most, but not to her. She smiled, walked up to him. "Coffee?" He nodded. She handed it over without hesitation. No questions, no photos, no expectation, just kindness. He smiled this time. "Thank you," he said. Again. As he walked away, Alicia pulled out her phone. A new email had arrived. Subject: Winslow Leadership Initiative Spring Conference Panel. Congratulations, Alicia Reed. We're proud to announce your selection as a speaker for this year's panel on equity through design. Alicia stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, a cup in one hand and a future in the other. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was leading, and it had started with nothing more than a cup of coffee.